Warwick Castle. The wind howled between the towers of the old castle. Dark clouds slowly stretched across the sky, as if trying to hide the structure from human eyes. "Okay, starting the shoot," Alex whispered, adjusting the camera. Mark checked the microphone and glanced around. He felt something strange. But he forced himself to focus. "Friends, welcome to a new episode of our blog." His voice sounded confident, though inside, he felt uneasy. Today, we are in the abandoned Warwick Castle in England. A place shrouded in legends. They say people have disappeared here. Alex switched on the flashlight and slowly swept its beam across the walls. Ancient paintings, covered in dust. Massive doors, barely hanging on their hinges. "Shall we explore?" Mark asked. Alex nodded. They moved forward, stepping on old wooden planks that creaked beneath their feet. "No one's been here for decades," Alex murmured. "That's exactly why we're here," Mark smiled. "Maybe we'll find something that confirms or disproves all these eerie legends." He took off his glove and ran his fingers along the wall. The stone was cold. Too cold. And then, somewhere deep in the castle, something slammed. They stopped abruptly. "Did you hear that?" Alex whispered. Mark slowly nodded. Silence again. Only the wind outside, crashing against the stone walls. "It's probably just the wind," Mark tried to reassure himself. But at that moment, the camera in his hand suddenly turned off. And then, they heard footsteps. Somewhere above, on the second floor, someone was walking. And it wasn't them. Steps. Clear. Heavy. Slow. They echoed from above, as if someone was walking on the old wooden beams of the second floor. Alex and Mark froze. That's definitely not the wind," Alex whispered, gripping the flashlight. Mark tried to turn the camera back on, but it wouldn't respond. "What the hell?" The battery was fully charged, he muttered, pressing the power button. The steps stopped. A deep, oppressive silence followed. Maybe someone actually lives here? Alex aimed the flashlight upwards, illuminating the staircase. A homeless person? Or someone else? If that were the case, they would have responded when we entered, Mark said, staring into the darkness above. He took a step towards the stairs. Alex grabbed his shoulder. "Are you seriously going up there?" "We're here to investigate, aren't we?" Mark swallowed, masking his fear. Alex took a deep breath and nodded. They started climbing the stairs. Each step echoed through the dead silence. The second floor smelled of dampness. Dusty carpets, torn curtains. Heavy air, thick with the past. "Look," Alex whispered, pointing at a door at the end of the hallway. It was slightly open. Mark pulled out his phone and tried to record a video, but the screen flickered, the image distorted. "Damn, something's wrong here," he muttered. Alex slowly approached the door and touched it. It creaked open. Inside, a dark room. A large fireplace. An old wooden wardrobe. A desk covered in dust. "It's like time has stopped here," Alex whispered. Mark stepped inside and halted. On the desk lay a sheet of paper. and it wasn't covered in dust. "This is fresh," he said, picking it up. Suddenly, from the hallway, they heard the same footsteps. But now, they were getting closer. Fast. Coming straight for them. The footsteps grew closer. Fast. Heavy. Relentless. Mark and Alex froze. "Who is that?" Alex whispered, gripping the flashlight in his trembling hands. Mark clutched the sheet of paper, unable to tear his gaze away from the dark hallway beyond the door. The footsteps stopped. Right at the threshold. Silence. Thick. Suffocating. And then, scratching. Like something sharp scraping against the wooden floor. Slowly. Tension building. Alex grabbed the doorknob and slammed the door shut. "Lock it," he whispered. "There's no lock." Mark nearly shouted, pressing his back against the door. And suddenly, 3 loud bangs. Something was slamming against the door from the other side. "Damn, what is that?" Alex stumbled backward, his breathing ragged. Mark's eyes darted to the desk. The paper, the words on it were changing. He remembered what it had said before, "They are watching." Now, the message was different. "Do not open the door." Mark felt his blood turn to ice. Alex saw it too. This is a trap," he whispered. More bangs. But now, the door wasn't just shaking. It was opening. Slowly. On its own. Mark pressed against it with all his strength, trying to hold it shut. And then he felt it. Cold. An invisible, icy hand touching his neck. He screamed. The door burst open. The flashlight flickered, its beam cutting into the darkness of the corridor. It was empty. No footprints. No sign of life. But then Alex, breathing heavily, whispered, "Mark, look at the floor." Mark lowered his gaze. From the doorway, into the room, led damp, bloody footprints. And they weren't theirs. Bloody, barefoot prints trailed from the threshold, deeper into the room. Alex stepped back, gripping the flashlight tighter. "This isn't ours." His voice trembled. Mark swallowed, trying to steady himself. "But there's no one here. How is this possible?" Slowly, they followed the footprints. Drops of blood seeped into the dust-covered floor, leading toward the wardrobe in the corner. Alex stopped. "Mark, we shouldn't. We need to know what this is." Mark took a deep breath and reached for the wardrobe doors. His heart pounded in his chest. With a swift motion, he flung them open. Empty. Just old clothes, covered in dust. "This is impossible," Alex whispered. But the footprints, they. And then, the wardrobe doors shuddered. From the inside. Mark and Alex stumbled back. Something was in there. A faint sound, heavy, strained breathing. That can't be an animal," Mark whispered. Alex raised the flashlight and shone it inside. Nothing. But then, they saw it. Eyes. Deep in the darkness, 2 pale pupils reflected the light. And then, it spoke. The voice was distorted, as if torn through the cracks of time. "You have come, just like the others." Mark and Alex recoiled. And then something slammed from inside the wardrobe. Hard. With force. The doors banged shut, and the wardrobe lurched forward. "Run!" Alex screamed. They bolted toward the exit. But the door they had entered through was locked from the outside. And behind them, the wardrobe was slowly opening again. The wardrobe doors slowly creaked open, as if something inside was forcing its way out. Alex and Mark froze. Their flashlights trembled in their hands. "Mark!" Alex barely whispered. But Mark couldn't look away from the darkness within the wardrobe. The eyes. They were there. Pale. Motionless. Empty. And then, they blinked. A heavy breath filled the room. Slow. Wet. Like something was dragging air through lungs long ruined by time. "We're not alone," Mark rasped. And then, it emerged. From the black void of the wardrobe, a hand slowly extended. Long gaunt. Skin stretched tightly over bones, torn and sagging in places. The fingers, unnaturally long, twisted, and moving. Something tall and deformed began to crawl out. Alex stepped back. No, this can't be real. Mark yanked at the doorknob. Locked. And then, a voice. It didn't come from the wardrobe. It came from everywhere. "You cannot leave." Something stepped onto the floor. A skeletal foot. Then another. The thing fully emerged, straightening its form. Tall. Emaciated. Its face, if it could even be called that, was hollow. Instead of eyes, two black voids swallowed the light. It stared at them. And then, it smiled. There were no teeth. Only a black abyss. And then, it lunged forward. The creature lunged. Alex and Mark barely managed to stumble backward. Their flashlights shook wildly, casting erratic beams that illuminated the horrifying thing for mere seconds, its withered, broken form, its empty sockets like bottomless pits, swallowing reality itself. "Open the door!" Alex screamed. Mark yanked the handle. Locked. "Damn it! It won't open." Alex spun around, searching desperately for another way out. The creature moved forward again, its dry joints cracking with each unnatural motion. And then, that sound. The whispering. Soft. Viscous. Seeping from the walls. "You will not leave." Alex swung his flashlight across the room. The walls? The symbols on them shifted. Bloody. Pulsing. Mark panted, pushing against the door with all his strength. This is a trap," he shouted. "The window!" Alex suddenly yelled, pointing at the dust-covered arched window in the corner. But at that moment, the creature moved faster. It wasn't walking anymore. It was running. Alex lunged forward, grabbing the nearest wooden chair. "Hold on!" Mark dashed to the window and struck it with his flashlight. Thud! Thud! The glass didn't even crack. "Damn it! It's like bulletproof." Alex swung the chair with all his might and hurled it at the window. Crash! A fracture. Mark didn't hesitate. Another strike with the flashlight. The crack spread. But the creature was already too close. Its hand stretched toward them, fingers open, ready to seize. Now! Mark delivered the final blow. The window shattered. Go! Without thinking, they jumped. And then? Alex's body slammed onto something solid. They weren't falling. They were lying down. On the floor. In the same room. The window was whole. And above them. It stood. And smiled. Alex and Mark lay on the cold, dusty floor. Their chests rose and fell in frantic spasms, their lungs burning from the lack of air. No. Mark rasped. This is impossible. They had jumped through the window. They had escaped. But they were still here. In the same room. And above them, the creature's grin widened. Unbearably. Unnaturally. Its lips stretched to its cheekbones, revealing nothing but a black abyss in place of a mouth. You came. You will never leave. Its voice echoed inside their heads. Alex clutched his skull, his fingers trembling. It's a trap. This is some kind of curse. Mark clenched his fists and looked around. We did something wrong. We touched something. And then, it hit him. The paper. The sheet he had taken from the desk. Shit! He frantically reached into his pocket and pulled it out. The words had changed again. There is only one way out. Alex glanced at it. What does that mean? The creature took a step forward. The sound of its withered feet striking the floor was louder than their heartbeats. We can't die here. Mark whispered. He forced himself onto his feet, staring into the creature's hollow sockets. And then, as if hearing his thoughts, it lunged. Mark and Alex bolted from the room. They sprinted through the dark corridor, not daring to look back. The footsteps behind them accelerated. The walls shuddered. The symbols burned with crimson light. Ahead, the stairs. They threw themselves down. But the stairs never ended. They ran. And ran. And ran. Yet the ancient stone descent stretched endlessly forward. We're running, in a loop. Alex gasped, his breath ragged. Mark turned back. Behind them, nothing. No creature. No doors. Nothing but a vast, all-consuming darkness swallowing the space itself. We're trapped. Mark's voice broke into a whisper. And then, they heard it again. The whispering. But now, it came from inside them. From inside their own heads. You are already part of this place. And then? The darkness ahead opened its eyes. The eyes in the darkness opened. Dozens. Hundreds. They glowed with a pale, sickly light, flickering like embers buried in cold ash. The whispering grew louder. It echoed in their heads, in the walls, in the very air. You will stay here. Like all the others. Alex and Mark gasped for breath, clinging to the dim beams of their flashlights, which were now barely flickering. We can't stay here. Mark's voice shook with terror. But how do we get out? Alex spun around, but there was no exit. Only darkness. Then Mark looked down at the trembling sheet of paper still clutched in his hand. There is only one way out. One way out. Cold fear tightened in Mark's chest. Alex, we can't keep running. What are you saying? We have to escape. That's the trap. We're running in circles. The whispering stopped. The eyes in the darkness froze. They were listening. Alex's heart pounded against his ribs. Behind them. Footsteps. Slow. It was getting closer. We have to make a choice, Mark whispered. The eyes flickered. The whispers returned. Stay. Become one of us. Mark turned to Alex. We have to stop moving. Alex hesitated. But then? He nodded. They stood still. For a moment, the darkness stopped moving too. The eyes vanished. The whispers died. And then? The world shifted. In an instant, they were outside. Standing at the entrance of the castle. Fresh air filled their burning lungs. They turned around. The ancient castle stood silent. Dark. As if nothing had ever happened. Alex and Mark panted, still unable to believe they were here. Did we make it? Alex's voice was barely a whisper. Mark didn't answer. He stared down at his hands. The sheet of paper? It was blank. And then? The castle doors began to close on their own. Just before they shut completely, something moved inside. Anne? The eyes opened again in the darkness. The tomb was waiting. For the next ones.